Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those of you joining us on the West Coast today. Simpson Consulting would like to welcome you to today's interactive webinar. It's bigger than the cloud, creating sales compensation that works for flexible consumption models. Now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. We have Joseph DeMisa, Senior Vice President and Salesforce Effectiveness Practice Leader, Sheila McCarthy, Senior Consultant, and Paul DeCoster, Senior Associate. With that, I will turn things over to Joe to begin today's presentation.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody on the East Coast. Good morning to everybody on the West Coast. Thank you again for attending. First, let's talk a little bit about what the presentation is going to be about and why it's important. And then we'll go into a little bit more of an introduction around myself, who we are, and the other folks on the phone. And then we'll just give you an idea of the type of people that are attending today's session, simply because we want to run this a little bit differently than the typical webinar that we do, and we'll talk about that in a second. But specifically, the presentation today is entitled, It's Bigger Than the Cloud, Creating a Compensation Plan That Works for Flexible Consumption Models. This is an interesting topic and an important topic. We're getting a lot of questions from our clients, from the industry. We're seeing different forms of media talking about cloud services, flexible consumption services, services models in legacy enterprise type of companies. And so we thought we would address it in a session today and try to make it as interactive as we can with certain questions that folks can either have answered and or that we might pose to you. But specifically, when you talk about why this is an important topic, what we're seeing is that a lot of technology firms, in fact, most technology firms, are really moving from a business-as-usual enterprise type of product strategy to more of a services type of product strategy. And while this is happening, what's going on is it's breaking old paradigms for the organization, how it's structured, and a lot of the financial ramifications around people, process, technology, and also the cost and the margins. With this, what we're finding is that many of the concepts around the plan design and the management of the organization need to change. And so, today's presentation will hopefully address that and give you a strong foundation to help you chart a course. One thing I do want to point out is that as we're finding in doing a lot of these projects, either from an organizational perspective, from a comp perspective, is that there's a lot of change going on, and a lot of this is being designed and developed as we speak. So there's not a defined strategy in how to move forward. It's based upon how quickly you're moving your products, what your organizational strategy is, and what your appetite for risk is. And so we'll talk about that today. And I think that's one of the reasons why an interactive session here, getting some feedback from the audience will help the discussion. So if we flip the page here real quickly, in terms of introductions, I'll give a brief introduction of myself. Sean gave it. I'm Joe DeMisa. I run the Salesforce Effectiveness Practice for the firm. I've been doing this for about 20 years, work across multiple industries, the technology industry, the telecom industry, the software industry, manufacturing, financial services. I'm a World of Work certified instructor. I teach the elements of sales compensation. I think it's the C1 class, and I also teach the C5 class, which is the benchmarking class. But I've been doing this, again, for about 20 years. I have about 5 or 6 years working on compensation plans, converting them more to a services type of plan versus an enterprise plan for very large technology companies. Then I also have two peers on the phone, Sheila McCarthy and Paul. I'll let them do a brief introduction of themselves.
Hello, everyone. This is Sheila McCarthy. As Sean mentioned, I'm a project manager, senior consultant with Simpson. I, as Joe, have spent 15-plus years in this business, and I've gone pretty deep, fairly deep in the last few years, working through these issues with organizations that we're consulting with, as Joe said, kind of designing the plans as we go and really getting in deep and understanding what the organization's objectives are when it comes to these new hosted solutions, cloud-based models, and looking forward today to continuing that effort to build the solutions with you today.